King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue. It was 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. He set it up in the Dora Valley in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar then ordered his chief administrators, his ministers, his governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all provincial officials to gather for a dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So, the chief administrators, and the ministers, and governors, and the counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all provincial officials gathered for a dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. They stood in front of the statue that the king had set up. And the herald proclaimed aloud, "All peoples, nations, and languages, this is what you must do. When you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument, you must bow down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. If you do not bow down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire." So, because of this order, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument, they bowed down and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At that moment, certain Chaldeans came forward, seizing an opportunity to attack the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king! Your Majesty, you gave a command that everyone who heard the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument must bow down and worship the gold statue that you have set up. Anyone who wouldn't bow down and worship would immediately be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire." Well, there are these Jews whom you appointed over the province of Babylon, specifically Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They don't serve your gods, O king, and they don't worship the gold statue that you've set up. And in violent rage, Nebuchadnezzar ordered them to bring him Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they were brought before the king. And he said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, whatever. Is it true? Is it true that you don't serve my gods and you don't worship the gold statue that I've set up? If you are now ready, bow down and worship the gold statue as soon as you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, harp, flute, and every kind of instrument. If you don't, you will be thrown into a furnace of flaming fire. And what God can rescue you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "We don't need to answer your question, okay? If our God, whom we serve, can rescue us from the furnace of flaming fire and from your hand, O king, then let God do it. But if God doesn't, know this for certain. We will never serve your gods, and we will never worship the gold statue that you set up." Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage, and his face twisted beyond recognition because of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In response, he commanded that the fire be heated to 7 times its normal heat. He told some of the strongest men in his army to bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the furnace of flaming fire. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were bound, still dressed in all of their clothes, and thrown into the furnace of flaming fire. Now, the king's command had been rash, and the furnace was heated to such an extreme that the flame's fire killed the very men who brought Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to it. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell, bound into the furnace of flaming fire. Nebuchadnezzar jumped back in shock, and he said to his associates, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire?" And they answered, "Certainly, Your Majesty." And he said, "I see 4 men unbound, walking around. And one of them looks like a god." Nebuchadnezzar went near the opening to the furnace of flaming fire, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of the fire. The chief administrators, the ministers and governors and counselors and treasurers and judges and magistrates and all provincial officials, they gathered around to look at them. The fire hadn't done anything to them. Their hair wasn't singed. Their garments looked the same as before. They didn't even smell like fire. Nebuchadnezzar declared, "May the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be praised. God sent a messenger to rescue the servants who trusted God. They ignored the king's order because they wouldn't serve or worship any god but God. I now issue a decree to every peoples, nations, and languages. Whoever speaks disrespectfully about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God will be torn limb from limb and their homes made a trash heap, because there is no other God who can rescue like this." Then the king made Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego prosperous in the province of Babylon.